All right, welcome to 1-4, and in this very first section, we're going to talk about graphing lines. So, what is a line? Well, a line is going to be generated by the function y equals mx plus b. And it's important to know what m and b stand for. M is going to be our slope, and it really indicates delta y over delta x. And what does delta y over delta x mean? Well, it means the change in y over the change in x. Okay. Also, I want you to note our slope can be either positive or negative. All right, what about the letter b? Well, that is our y-intercept, and it's also going to be what I'm going to call our starting point. Our starting point. Oh, and by the way, if it's the y-intercept, what do you think that means? Is that where it crosses the x-axis or the y-axis? Well, if it's the y-intercept, it's where it crosses the y-axis. Okay. Well, with all of that out of the way, and that is basically your Algebra 1 review, we're going to talk about some graphs or some examples. So, if you need to, pause the video. If not, let's move on. Okay, here we have example 1. Y equals 2/3 x plus 1. Now I want to indicate some things here. We see here our b term is equal to a positive 1, and we also see here that our slope m is equal to a positive 2/3. Without knowing any specifics on how to graph this, I could actually roughly graph this already. See, on our y-axis, right here, whenever you're going up, that's positive. So since my y-intercept is positive, I know it's above the x-axis. Also, my slope is positive, which means that from left to right, it is increasing. So if I wanted to draw a rough graph without any specifics, I know it would actually have to look something like that. Now let's do a specific graph though, because it's important. Okay, here's our specific graph. We know that our y-intercept is 1. So on the y-axis, if I go up to a positive 1, there's that. And then it says that we're going to go a slope of 2/3. Well, what does 2/3 really mean? It means that we're going to go up 2, because remember, this 2 is our delta y, or our change in y, and it means we're going to go to the right 3. And the reason that is because this is delta x. So imagine this, when you're going up on the y-axis, that's positive. When you're going down on the y-axis, that's negative. When you're going right on the x-axis, that's positive. And when you're going left on the x-axis, that's negative. So positive 2/3 is going up 2, right 3. We'll basically do this. We'll go up, we'll put our very first point here at 1, and from this starting point, we'll go up 1, 2, and then to the right 1, 2, 3. And so I'll kind of go up 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. And there is my next point. Now the cool thing about graphing a line is that the points will always go the same distance. So to go to my next one, I can go up 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, and then I can kind of fill in these tick marks as we go. And so you'll say, okay, well, there's our next point. And so we've drawn our line, and let's pretend that's straight. Yeah, instead of pretending it's straight, let me just do a better job. I tried. I'm not your art teacher. Okay, so I would encourage you to pause this video, and let's move on to our next example. All right, example 2. Well, what if I did this? What if I said f of x is equal to, let's say 1/3 x minus 3. Okay, we're going to do 2 examples here. We're going to do our actual example, and we're going to do our rough draft example. So here's just my rough draft example. I know that my y-intercept is negative, so I'd have to go down below the x-axis, and I know that my slope is positive, so from left to right, I'm going to be increasing. So this is what my rough draft graph would look like. All right, and by the way, the reason I'm telling you these rough draft graphs is because if you just understand how a positive slope looks or a negative or positive y-intercept looks, you'll be able to answer these questions without doing any math, okay? So now let's take a look here. We know that our y-intercept is -3. That indicates that from the origin, we're going to start by going down 1, 2, 3, and here is our starting point. Now from here, our slope is 1/3, and remember, what that really means is this +1 means that we're going up 1, and this +3 means that we're going right 3. So I go to my starting point, I go up 1, to the right 1, 2, 3, and then I like to fill in little tick marks there, and we have our next point. If I want to go find my next point, I do the exact same thing. It's called having a constant rate of change. So I'll go up 1, and then to the right 1, 2, 3. I can fill in my tick marks, put my point, and I would always encourage you to draw at least 3 points before graphing your line, just so you can learn to get that practice. Now here's what we're going to do. We're going to do 2 more rapid fire examples. So I'd encourage you to pause this, finish taking the notes, but here come our 2 quick paced examples. Okay, example 3. Here we have y equals, and you're going to notice, -4x plus 1. Now let's do our rough draft graph, and our y-intercept is positive, so ask yourself, is that going to be above or below the x-axis? Well, if it's positive, it's going to be above the x-axis, and so we'll start somewhere like that. Okay, and then our slope is negative, so instead of going from left to right and increasing, this is going to go from left to right and be decreasing. Or you can think of it as like going down a hill or going down a mountain. Okay, well let's see if our rough draft graph matches our actual example. So, here we have our slope is -4, and our y-intercept is +1. And remember, your y-intercept is your starting point, so it can go up 1 for our very first point. But you're going to see that there's a problem with a slope of -4. It's not a fraction. Now, that's actually not that big of a deal. Whenever you're given a whole number, in order to make it a fraction, all you have to do is put it over 1. And what is -4 over 1 really saying? Remember, it's delta y over delta x, which means we are going to go down 4, and we're going to go to the right 1. Remember, when you have a negative y value, you're going down. So I go here to my initial point, I count down 1, 2, 3, 4. I go to the right 1, fill in my tick mark, and now I could begin to draw my line. But notice this, if I went down 4 more, I might run off the graph. So this is a cool trick too. Instead of going down 4 and to the right 1, what do you think would be the exact opposite of that? Well, we just flip the direction for both parts. So instead of down 4, we can go up 1, 2, 3, 4. And instead of going to the right 1, we can go to the left 1. So up 1, 2, 3, 4 to the left 1. And you'll notice it still forms our straight line or our linear function. Okay, let's go ahead and do one final one. Oh, and by the way, if you'd gone back through this video, you'd find all of our actual graphs always match up with our rough graphs. Okay, final example and final type of problem that we could see. Here we have y is equal to -2x plus 6. Now I would encourage you to pause the video and try to graph this one on your own by yourself and see if it actually works out for you. Now, I know that you're all great students, so you've paused it, So let's talk about our rough draft graph. I noticed that my y-intercept is positive, so it's going to be above the x-axis. And I noticed that my slope is negative, so from left to right, is it increasing or decreasing? And of course it should be decreasing. So there's my rough draft graph. But let's put some specifics to it. Oh, and in the last one, I put my m first, but I would always prefer y'all write y'all's b first just because it's our starting point. So we know that our b term, our y-intercept, is positive 6, which means we got to increase 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We will put our very first point right there. Now beyond that, our slope is negative 2. And remember, to write it as a fraction, it should really be negative 2 over 1. Perfect. And of course, putting this into words, we know this will go down 2 and right 1. So here I go down 2, right 1, down 2, right 1, down 2, right 1, and of course, we can draw our line through that. Okie doke. I hope this helps. Good luck, and I'll see you on our next section.